Hey y'all, we are back with Mighty Multimedia. This is topics number 4. As you can see, I am on brand for this week's episode of topics. This was actually my Halloween costume that I wore this year. I had like I was talking about my Green Lantern one earlier. I did wear that too for another night. But this was my main one. This is what I put a bunch of effort into, and I love it. I thought it was a big hit. Everyone loved it. I've been looking out for any Halloween costumes that might have been able to top mine, on the internet. People I know, people I don't, but I haven't been able to find it. I think, not gonna brag too much, but humble brag. I think I might have won Halloween this year. Besides the way, obviously I'm Ash from Pokemon Ash Ketchum, so we are gonna be talking about Pokemon. I got my Pikachu right here behind me. I got the whole thing. I got a Pokeball here. I got a lot of little things. I have a Pokédex too. That was really cool. And then this is the finishing touch, right? How cool is that? I got all the badges. That was pretty awesome. These gloves got really beaten up. They're pretty flimsy, pretty cheap, but whatever. They did the job. They hung in there. So it's adjacent to Halloween, like I'm talking about before. But Halloween is over and done. It just happened that I wore this. This is not a Halloween special. This is just normal topics. So what we will be doing today is ranking the first 7 Pokemon movies. The reason that it's 7 is because I have on disc the first 7 Pokemon movies. And I'll talk about a little why we're stuck on 7 as well, but these are the big ones. I get to use a little bit of props and such. Okay, before we get into actually ranking these top 7, I do want to talk about some of the later entries. Again, this is the number of 7 is partly because of that, but okay. So I'm gonna just touch on a few of the other ones, right? So one of them I want to talk about is the 10th movie, that is Pokemon. Or what was it? Rise of Darkrai. So that's got Dialga and Palkia and stuff. So it's everyone's falling asleep, and then the world's basically ending, or at least their little part of the world. But I think it's affecting the rest of the world and everything. It was fun. It was cool. I do love Gen 4. And those legendaries are really great. It looked cool and everything, but like I said, with the whole world ending, just a little much for me. There was a lot going on, so I'd probably rank it relatively low if we were ranking it. I just want to touch on that. Another one was the 8th movie, so that was Lucaria. I think it's called like The Mystery of Mew or something. So that's like Lucaria was frozen, and they thawed him out, and then some nonsense about crystals and him thinking that Ash is another person. Lucario is an interesting character. He's able to talk and such. And the fantasy elements are pretty good in that they really work with kind of the whole like gallant knight, like knight in shining armor, hero, stuff like that with the sword and everything. But again, a little too much for me, just in the realm of getting away from what really is Pokemon. Trying some unique stuff on both of them. I think this was probably more unique. Dialga Palkia is probably not too unique, but just ramping it up too much. But those 2 are good, so I do want to say that. Just wanted to put that note on there. And then the other 2 movies from that 8 to 11 range, 9 and 11. So 9 is the Temple of Seawater with Manaphy and such, and 11 is another Giratina one. Similar to the other ones. To be honest, I haven't seen them in a while. I don't remember too much, but I think there's a reason for that. I think they weren't incredibly memorable. I was doing like a tiny bit of research, so I was able to like dig in the recesses of my memory with some little prodding there. Not great, not too bad. They would be really low on the rankings again if I was going to rank them. But those 8 to 11 are not bad. I did watch them as a kid. I have some fond memories of them. Some of the Pokemon and characters and everything is good. After that, don't even talk to me about those movies. I'm definitely my Pokemon stopped at Gen 4. Everything after that was just far inferior from the actual games. I know Gen 5 it kept a little style, whatever, but that one was okay, I guess, with the actual game. But after that, changing the models to the 3D, not a fan. With the Pokemon, they just got ridiculous. I always say, I'm playing games when a new Pokemon come out, or when my sister or someone else shows me a new Pokemon, I just like, that's a Digimon. That and Pokemon have a certain style, certain like cartoony style or whatever, and they've been going way too hard with that. Plus, with just the awful personified things, it's like a vacuum cleaner and an ice cream cone or whatever. I know there's some of it in the early ones, but get that out of here. That's just unoriginal. And then super unoriginal, like I think it's called Duckling or something. It's just a blue duck. Again, I know there's ones in the early gens, but after Gen 4, not a fan. I haven't really seen the TV shows, and I've seen some of the movies, but it just wasn't Pokemon to me. Pokemon stopped at Gen 4. It took a steep downhill. So I'm gonna stop talking because it's not even worth talking about. Pokemon is dead. Deal with it. So we're gonna go back and talk about the good Pokemon. Getting into the actual rankings, right? We're gonna go from all the way at the back at 7 to 1. Build up some suspense. Gotta do it. Number 7 is a pretty early one, but I think a lot of people will be missed. So at number 7, I have the third Pokemon movie. I think it's just called Pokemon 3, the movie. So that is with Entei and the little girl that he has like a bond with because her parents or something, like big crystals and all that. I know I'm working in really vague terms here, but it's just so bland. There's just not a whole lot going on. It's very contained, which can be good. I've talked about being contained, very tight, very straightforward. Can be really a real big asset to a movie, but I don't think it was big enough. And again, a lot of it was just super bland. It just felt like another just few episodes rather than a big Pokemon movie. Obviously, it has the legendary in Entei. Entei is a really good legendary, but just not a whole lot going to that. I do think it suffers. I will talk about some of these. I do think it suffers from the comparison to some of the movies around it. So the other movies were really good, and some of the movies after that was really good as well. So I do think, just in comparison, it probably is worse or feels worse. You're doing 1 and 2, which again we'll talk about, are pretty good, and then you just get this like just kind of slap in the face almost, just not even interested. So that's why it is all the way at the end at number 7. Moving right along to number 6 on our list is actually the 6th Pokemon movie to come out, and this doesn't really have the other ones, so I can point to it just a little bit to help. But this is on the bottom here, Pokemon Jirachi Wishmaker. This is another one. It's definitely not as bland as the third one. It's got some things going for it. I do think it suffers a little bit from the blandness. So this is Jirachi's waking up from its 1,000-year slumber or something like that, and it's gotta make some wishes, and there's a bad guy who wants to use it and such. It takes place on this circus that was throwing me off. I don't know, obviously there's different settings of Pokemon movies and Pokemon shows and everything, but it just wasn't working for me. I think there's a lot of movies that kind of have hurt from circus. The one that's popping into my mind is is Madagascar 3, and the circus is just a weird setting to have this in. It's not a huge no, just I didn't love that. Groudon was cool, how they had that thing, but it wasn't really Groudon, and it was not explained super well, so it kind of just felt like they were throwing in Groudon, and Groudon is actually probably one of my favorite legendaries, but it was, again, almost like a slap in the face to a Pokemon player. It's a Pokemon fan. We're showing you something that is kind of like Groudon, but it's a different design, and it's not Groudon, and you're going to be confused and upset and annoyed. One thing that I did like was Absol. Absol, the Pokemon pseudo-legendary, maybe, but not even really, I guess. I don't know. I don't even really think so. But not used too often. And I think it is a more unique Pokemon. The design is awesome. It looks great. I would love an Absol. Not great in the games or whatever, so I didn't have them there. But like in real life, I would love to have an Absol. So I really enjoy when Absol is included and just used as it, because you can throw Pokemon into different roles all the time. That's going to be a pretty fun job, right? Making the shows and the movies and going through and trying to pick the Pokemon that you want to use. You know, you want to highlight the Pokemon that are underused, but also if they're really bad, there's a reason that they're underused. You don't want to force them down people's throats. And you also don't want to overuse a lot of the main Pokemon. Obviously, this guy here is a little bit overused, but he's Pikachu. He is Pokemon, so that one obviously gets a pass. But there's some other ones that can definitely be overused. So making those kind of choices, one's got to be really fun, and definitely affects your viewing experience when you are watching a show, because there could be some weird choices, and if you get the choices right, especially just with the background Pokemon, I don't know whether you're just a Pokemon that another trainer has that makes that usually blends off their character, and it works if they're heroic, it's like a cooler one. If they're bad, it's like a darker one or a creepier one. And even the background Pokemon, if you're going in the forest, in the city, in the woods, in the water, in rocks, mountains, whatever it is, those background Pokemon can really help. Okay, but I'm definitely digressing. Absol is a cool one. I'm glad that Pokemon was used here. And then the last kind of piece that I want, it's good. I don't know if I love it, but I just more want to note it rather than something I'm a fan of or I enjoy. But the young character in our group here, Max, his relationship, his bond with Jirachi, the Pokemon, it was kind of weird. We're going to talk about some other relationships with Pokemon in a second. It's cute. In a little bit, Max gets really protective of Jirachi and stuff, but Jirachi itself, I think, is a pretty weak legendary to build it around, and just this whole kind of building it around a genie and the slumber and just the design of this little character and how weak and frail it is and whatever. I don't know if that's all of it. I think, again, some of it is just being bland, but I don't love Jirachi in general. I don't like the way they handled Groudon. The setting was weird for me. It's not terrible, but it is pretty low on my list, obviously. We are now going to number 5. And I want to make a little shout out here too, is that after maybe a little like asterisk or just just announcement is that after these top 5 Pokemon movies, I do love all of them. I have a great fondness for my childhood. I've rewatched some of them relatively recently, some more recently than others, but very much enjoy all of these. Again, those other ones that I put at 7 and 6, so that's movie 3 and movie 6. Okay, don't usually rewatch those if I'm looking for a movie to rewatch, but almost any of these, I would, if I'm like, I'm gonna go watch a Pokemon movie, I would pick one of these 5. So I just want to make that clear. At number 5, we have their Pokemon Destiny Deoxys, is what they called it. It is the 7th movie, I believe. Yes, 7th movie. And again, I do like this one a lot. It's great. The legendaries in this, it's probably something I'm going to be saying a lot, but the legendaries in this are awesome. The big battle between Deoxys, changing the forms and everything is great. Again, not super helpful in the games, but the cool design and everything. And Rayquaza, the giant dragon, everyone loves Rayquaza, right? A lot of the good Pokemon cards, remember, is Rayquaza, because you can do so much with his design. And I see some really, really fantastic looking, beautiful looking, intricately designed Pokemon cards, the images on them there. So that's great. Definitely ticks a box. I think the big problem I have with this, why it's not higher, 2 problems I think, is one, the real meat of this movie is dealing with technology, with the big technological city, and it going haywire, and having to deal with that, as well as Deoxys being an alien from space, which, always an alien, that's into his character, that makes sense. But again, just a little off from Pokemon. There's not many aliens in Pokemon. There's the Genesect one after this. Pokemon aren't aliens. This is a world that we're dealing with that's a little too much. And then the technology, and then dealing with the evils of technology and what can happen, I think is a big kind of theme crux of it. A little high-minded for Pokemon, I would say. I love Pokemon. You can teach a lot of lessons in Pokemon, but that was maybe a little too much on the nose there. Some of this problem could come from this is the movie 7, so you've already done a lot. Plus, also obviously you have the shows, and you have the games and everything like that. There's like books, I think, and everything as well. There's comic books, I believe, also. Yeah, I've seen them. So there's comics, all types of medium, all types of different stories told. So some of it could just be exhausting stories that you can tell with Pokemon. It's a big, fantastical world, but there's only so much you can do without retreading ground and making it feel stale. So, as I always say, props for being unique, props for putting yourself out there, props for trying something new, but wasn't quite on that brand of Pokemon like I like. So that's one of two reasons why it's not quite all the way up there and at the bottom of the ones that I really love. And the other ones, I just feel like the gang in this, right? So that's we're moving past the beginning, right? Misty's gone, so it's Ash, Brock, Max, and May. I just feel like they don't have a whole lot to do. This happens in other ones, and it is a little bit of a problem with Dialga and Palkia, that movie I was talking about earlier. You know, Ash goes up and he has to blow the horn and put the thing in or whatever. So he's doing something. And this one, I just feel like there's not a lot going on. They're just fighting in the sky, and the gang is just running from all of this technology stuff. Obviously, they are doing stuff, and they have an impact on the plot, but I feel like it's less of an impact on a plot than can be. And then all the people are trapped or gone or whatever, so you're not interacting with a whole lot of other people. So the minimal of characters as well. Just a few kind of critiques I have with that. Again, I do like it, but just some holes that set it apart from not being as high on this list. Moving onward to number 4, and you're gonna see, I told you I like these so much, these other ones. So my discussion talking about these ones are probably going to get more lengthy. I enjoy them, so I'm probably going to have more to say. I do have a few critiques of some of them, but it's going to be a little less of just kind of poking holes and saying that it's bad or whatever. But this one at number 4 is the 5th Pokemon movie, and that is called Pokemon Heroes, the movie. A pretty bland title, if I do say so myself. All the other ones have pretty good, I guess, at the beginning. It doesn't matter. But this one is with Latias and Latios. They are some pretty interesting characters. They're some pretty interesting Pokemon. Some pretty unique designs, really flying around, really cool. But so this is in this type of Venice-like city. You know, it definitely reminds you of Venice. I'm sure that's where they took the inspiration. So it's a city, and a lot of the roads are actually waterways, so you take boats and everything. I really love it. A great setting. Like I talked about, some of the settings kind of hurted. This setting was really cool. It's in a packed city and whatever. But this city, this setting has got a lot of heart. They took a lot of character design with all these gates and spires and waterways and such. But the opening of this movie, where they're racing boats, is so good, right? So this is still, you have Misty's still here, so she's got a water Pokemon, so she's racing with Ash. Brock is just like holding and taking care of the Pokemon while Ash and Misty do this. But fantastic. One of the best opening scenes, really, of a lot of animated movies, if not movies in general. Just a great. There's the song that's playing is just so hype, and they're going back and forth. Really cool. At the end, you introduce the mysterious Latias. They're invisible, but it grabs Ash and like pushes him ahead or whatever. So a great way to put that in and introduce us hitting the ground running. Obviously, for anyone who has seen this, a big defining feature of this movie is Ash's relationship with the Pokemon Latias. She morphs her body into a girl, so Ash is able to interact with her as a human, or seemingly human. She doesn't talk, because she's a Pokemon, although some Pokemon do talk, which is weird, like picking which Pokemon can talk. Sometimes it's a necessity when you deal with the legendaries of the movie, or Meowth is always helpful with the translations. That was probably smart at the very beginning. I don't know if they really had that in their mind as that tool that you can use, but it happens all the time, right? The Pokemon are having a conversation or something, or they're just doing stuff, and Meowth is able to understand and translate for usually Team Rocket, sometimes our Pokemon gang, Ash and his friends. And a lot of times obviously for the benefit of the viewer, but that's a good little tool that was smart at the beginning, because with all of these Pokemon, these animals being a main focus of it, you sometimes really want to know what they're saying and feeling and doing. So that's a good little piece. But either way, Ash is like flirting, at least with Latias. There's definitely some like tension relationship, but other than Max, that was more of like a real friend relationship. This is like a romantic relationship, which is, it is cute in some aspects, but it's also weird. You know, like Ash is like hitting on a Pokemon. Yeah, Ash thinks the Pokemon is cute or whatever. To Ash's credit, Latias first approached him as a human, so he didn't know that. You know, he thought that this girl was attractive, and he wanted to talk to her or whatever as a person before he found out she was a Pokemon. And it's not like it's getting really creepy when Latios turns out she reveals that she is a Pokemon, but Ash is still like in that a little bit or whatever, right? I don't. That's a mixed bag. Definitely unique for pros in that way. Some of it's cute. It's not terrible. It doesn't cross a line, so that's okay. But again, maybe why it's bumped it down a tiny little bit. But then a Pokemon actually dies. Is created. It's not Latias. It's Latios, the blue one. It sacrifices itself, I want to say. You could fact check me on that if that is incorrect. But I know obviously one of them dies. One of them actually dies. A Pokemon actually dies in this kids show, which is hardcore. I've talked about some of the stakes being too much or whatever, but the stakes are very low in this. It's just a contained town. There's the world's not ending or whatever. The bad guys, who we're going to talk about in a sec, are just trying to capture these two legendaries, Latias and Latios. So there's the world's not ending, but the stakes aren't high like ginormous, but the stakes are deep and meaningful. Again, putting a personal relationship with one of the Pokemon and then killing one of them. That does not happen often. Like very, very, very scarce. And someone is actually dying in one of these Pokemon movies. A Pokemon in general, because you have to be careful with that, right? Because you're having these Pokemon, these animals battle and fight each other. So you're supposed to be, stakes that you don't want them to lose or whatever, but not that they're gonna die. They talk about sometimes, it's a kid show, so they don't say die. They'll say like get extinguished or leave or something like that, right? But you don't want to have that in kids' head, like, oh my god, this Pokemon could actually die. But for maybe a little older viewers and just more sophisticated kids watching these, it does really hit home that there are stakes in these movies and such. And obviously the Pokemon movies rather than the show is usually has bigger stakes and is more real in the Pokemon shows. Not all of them, for sure. A lot of them are them walking around and doing episodic things and just battling and fighting and getting gym bashes and doing contests and stuff to this. Like, this is more we're fighting for survival and good versus evil and such. But just that's why this is more up there, I think, which it has that gravitas. And then just the last little thing that did hold this back a little bit, and maybe why it didn't quite get into top 3 other than the little bit of weirdness of the relationship, is the villains in this. Some of the villains can really help, but the villains is the 2 girls who are they're Pokemon hunters or whatever, like as so many other ones are. They're trying to capture Latias and Latias. They were just really annoying. Not too big on them, not too high on them. I thought they held it back a little bit. It could have been better with better villains, but they didn't play a gigantic role, but they definitely were instigating it, the kind of spy thief kind of motif. Their Pokemon were good as they maxed up. It was the Arachne, something like that, the spider, and Epsilon, I think. So those work, those kind of mysterious, more evil looking Pokemon or whatever, those work to their strength. But the 2 of them themselves cutting to them and just being, I don't know, just really like, I think just flamboyant and like stinkering and haha. Not huge fan of that, so that might have downgraded this a little bit, and why it's sitting here at 4. At number 3, so that's definitely a big deal. We're getting up there. At number 3, I have the 4th Pokemon movie. If you couldn't tell from the title, it is called Pokemon Forever. Haha, a little bit of wordplay for you there. But this is with Celebi, and the woods and kind of nature spirit and everything we just talked about in the fifth movie, Latias and Latias Heroes, that the villains weren't great. In this one, I think the villain is really, really good. I mean, his design is awesome with the gold helmet and kind of like the big armor or whatever. The dark balls, they don't really use those in any other ones. Really, really fun idea. His Pokemon is Tyranitar. Again, super strong, big, scary dinosaur. That character, great use of him in that. I would love a Tyranitar as well. And for some big Pokemon bad guy hunter here, it's a great one to have, really powerful, so you can overpower Pokemon and capture them. I think he had a few other Pokemon as well, but Tyranitar is the big standout. When he captures Celebi and he uses him, it's pretty scary and pretty crazy. The stakes again are not huge, they're pretty contained to this forest here, but it's a giant monster. All the Pokemon are going around and they're scared or whatever, but this giant monster and Celebi's all like taken over and all that design of the giant monster is pretty cool. It does get away a little bit from Pokemon, you don't see that too often, but I'll let it slide because it was done to such great effect. But the Dark Balls, they should really use that more, or maybe they have more recently that I haven't watched, but I mean, crazy. You could just throw a Pokeball and steal another person's Pokemon and just make them evil. That's a pretty crazy concept that really throws a lot of stuff on its head in the Pokemon world. Celebi, the main legendary of this, is fun and energetic, flying around and being a little mischievous and all that, the nature spirit. Love that. The other one though is Suicune. Legendary is awesome. I love Suicune. Great design, running across the water like that. And just shout out to Suicune. I don't really have more interesting thought, more well-formed thought than just that. I really love Suicune, but great to see that Pokemon in here. Celebi is awesome though. Again, it has a nice little relationship with Ash, as a lot of them do, but sometimes they do make relationships with other characters, as we saw with Jirachi and Max. But so Celebi is the nature spirit. That's their big thing, but also is the whole time travel piece. And the time travel gets a little hectic, right? So there is the boy who comes in with them and is talking and interacting with them and knows a lot about Celebi and everything when they're in the woods here, trying to run and defeat this evil Pokemon trainer guy here, Pokemon hunter. And then Celebi gets really messed up after it gets all big and with the monster controlled and everything, and the forest is dying. And Celebi actually dies in this one as well. I say actually, but that's not true, I guess. I mean, you could probably argue whether it actually dies, but either way, all these other Celebis from different times or whatever come and fix this Celebi up. So this Celebi, the movie doesn't end with Celebi actually dying. In Heroes, it's like there's the statue of the Latios who died. Latios is like all sad. You're like, oh my god, that is dead. It is not coming back, right? But in this, Celebi does end up walking. It does live in the end, but it gets seriously hurt. So there's definitely some stakes. It looks all withered and whatever. That was a really good, just visual trick there. But for the time travel piece as well, time travel can be very complicated. I've talked about this definitely in some stuff already, and I will talk about it in the future. You have to be very careful with time travel. You have to know exactly what you're doing. You got to keep it concise. And this did it to pretty good effect. The Celebi's coming in. Didn't really ruin much. It was a little hand wavy, but they established the whole kind of time travel idea. And then it turns out that the kid who came back from the past turned out to be Professor Oak. That's wild. I mean, what a fun idea. That is really, really cool. They do it really subtly, but they just poke in. No one else really knows. I saw something recently that it's like a fan theory, I would say, why Ash didn't get one of the three main, Charmander, Squirtle, Bulbasaur at the very beginning. Why did he get a Pikachu? Because that's not like a starter in any other game or whatever. Obviously, they just like the design of it. I mean, it's awesome. Pikachu is one of the most recognizable, really, designs out there, I would say, at this point. So that's why they did it, to throw their weight behind it. But back then, that Oak saw Ash and met Ash when he was a really young kid, and he saw him with Pikachu, so he just knew that he had to have a Pikachu. So that is the Pokemon that he gave him. It makes sense, kind of adding that in, pretty fun, but just giving it more meaning, giving it more gravitas in there. That this character that we know and love, Professor Oak, is even more involved in Ash's life than he really knows. And, you don't want to tell him, I guess, because that would probably mess up a lot. They do kind of hint at it again when Oak is talking to him later on, at the end of the movie. But the setting of this is great as well. In the forest, these cool lakes so we can jump around, and then the forest that can get destroyed. You show the wilting and everything. You can really show the forest getting destroyed and having all the Pokemon come. Shows it's a big deal. That's been used before. We'll talk about that again as well. But absolutely love this one. It is it's one of the best out there. Classic Pokemon movie. Celebi is a big reason, but the bad guy is a big reason. It all comes together in a really nice contained package. That's why it's sitting here at number 3. We are now at the penultimate ranking here, number 2 spot. We're at number 2, and this one might be a little controversial by some people. Please, if you're watching this and think it's controversial and have a different idea, please let me know why. But for me, at least, at number 2, I'm putting the first Pokemon movie, right? I think it's Pokemon the first movie. Is that right? Yeah, Pokemon the first movie. Again, very original titles here. They get a little bit better, I think, later on, but that's okay. We're not gonna drag down that or harp on that too much, because this movie is awesome. It's just amazing, right? So this has got Mew and Mewtwo. This started it all off, so obviously it pushes it up there, but also it's a great movie. The whole mysterious opening, I was talking about the Pokemon Heroes racing through the through the waterways opening is awesome. This mysterious, Mewtwo is in the lab, in the tube with all the gear, and breaks open, almost like a horror type thing. Obviously it's pretty subdued. I heard the Japanese version is actually a little bit more crazy, and they go a little bit deeper into it, but they didn't think us American soft audiences would handle their kids. But either way, really cool, really mysterious. And then getting all of these trainers and everything to go and meet this invitation, and the dark seas and the dark skies and the rain and the big the big waves, and having to get across that. A really, really good way to open a movie. We were talking about bad guys. In this, the bad guy, the villain, whatever you want to call it, I don't know, maybe not, you don't want to call it, label an actual villain, is the legendary and the villain are both the same character, right? The bad guy and the legendary are Mewtwo. There is Mew, obviously, but Mewtwo is also legendary, and also the bad guy, the instigator of this, which is pretty fun. So that bad guy definitely carries this movie forward. Is a plus in the right column. Maybe it's a little cheating that the bad guy and legendary are the same in purposes of this, but whatever. It definitely works here. A big reason that I like this movie, and it's crazy that it started off like this. You'd think it would start off, the first Pokemon movie ever, a little bit more mundane. But this movie, right from the get-go, showed that Pokemon can tackle some pretty deep issues. So it tackles the idea of clones and creators. What is an original, and what does it mean to be someone's creator? What does it mean to be created, and all that? It definitely has to deal with anger and revenge and everything on behalf of Mewtwo and some other characters and such. So that's really good, grief and all that. It also has to deal with love with Ash and Pikachu, mostly at the end, which we'll talk about. But again, also with some other ones. Even Team Rocket definitely gets into that theme where they're really enjoying each other's company. Team Rocket's fun. One of my friends dressed up as Team Rocket. My friend and his girlfriend, they did Jesse and James. They made their costumes, which was pretty cool. I got to see them. I got a good picture with the both of them. I didn't even know it was totally not planned, but it looked great. It got a great picture for the gram. But Team Rocket is good. They can be really annoying, so they can hinder a movie or a show. I would say they definitely work better in most of the shows, because they, the stakes aren't high, and they're just the recurring guy that comes in and messes with them and causes a trap or whatever. But in movies, they're just not serious, so they can be it can really bring down like a serious plot or whatever, or they can get in the way and be annoying. Although in a lot of movies, when there is bigger stakes, they will join or at least help the heroes. Here they do help them. They go in with the clones and everything. So Team Rocket you got to be careful with Team Rocket, definitely. And this one uses them to good effect. And I think a lot of these early movies use them to good effect. Again, at the end, in later movies, they start getting worse and worse, either too irrelevant or too involved. It was pretty funny. Again, maybe a little high-minded, but this one definitely gets a pass on those grounds. It's pretty funny when Mewtwo and Mew are floating above everyone, and they're having their big philosophical debate that's really, vocalizing a lot of the themes and everything. And Mew can't talk, only Mewtwo can talk. So Mew's just squeaking, and Mewtwo's standing there having like a fluid conversation. I can't remember if they use Meowth to translate for Mew. I think they do. But either way, you're looking at it, and Mewtwo's talking, and Mew's just squeaking back, which is kind of funny. But the conversation that they're having is pretty meaningful. Again, it uses a lot of those themes of, letting anger go, and that there's a love between Pokemon and trainers and across those divides. And humanity is good in general. Mewtwo really gave up on humanity. But Ash showed him that humanity is good, and so many other people showed him that it was good. So that the conversation itself is really excellent and really meaningful. But the execution of that sometimes can be a little funny. There's a little tidbit that I love is when Ash. So this is when Charizard is Charizard, but Charizard never listens to him, right? That's a good plot point in a lot of the show, but they do use it in this. And then they take out all the final evolutions of the starters, which says Venusaur, Blastoise, and Charizard. You got to do it. This is the big first movie, so you got to show off a lot of your best Pokemon. And I like how they did it. They do that in some of the other ones, but not all of them. You got to use it here. But again, you can't overuse it after you've already done it, right? But they all say that they have nicknames for their Pokemon, and Ash just says, oh, this is Charizard. I don't have a nickname for him, and they're making fun of him or whatever. I don't know if that goes to the games. This probably came out at least after one of the first few games where you can give your Pokemon nicknames. I usually did. I think that's a really fun aspect of it. I know some people don't like to give their Pokemon nicknames. I don't know if that was taking a little jab at the game, but either way, I just always loved that little scene. But aside from all that, we got to get to what anyone who has seen this is actually looking for, is actually waiting for, is the big climax when Ash dies. My dead. Not really, obviously, because that's not gonna how it work. But we have seen that people can pass away and die in these movies. But Ash is turned to stone when he gets in the way of Mew and Mewtwo fighting. The getting turned to stone is an interesting choice, but it was effective. Getting turned to stone is never good, and depending on what media you're working with, sometimes it can be reversed, sometimes it can't. So they definitely play on the tension a little bit of, obviously they're trying to make it look like Ash is dead. Ash is definitely down for the count. But it's just so sad. He does come back with the tears and the power of love, all of that. But, Pikachu with tears in his eyes, crying over Ash, zapping him over and over again like he has done in their relationship so many times, but just like you can hear it in the, you're just saying Pikachu, but you can hear it in the Pikachu there, where he's just like, this is his best friend, this is his soulmate, this is everything, and just the pain of trying to make him wake up. He's been through a lot. He just has to wake up. Oh man, I'm stumbling here, but it hits hard every time. It's a powerful scene, and to have it in this first one, I don't really know if that specific level of emotion and all that has really been matched in a Pokemon movie after this. Everyone loves that scene. Everyone knows that scene. But I wanted to touch on it. Had to be said. What is another crazy one? Is and then I'm gonna wrap this up and we'll get to the last one. Is when the clones are fighting. First of all, when the clones come out, the Pokemon are ready, and then they're clones, and they're kind of freaky, and they're a little different. Usually like a little harder, little meaner looking, come out there, and then all the Pokemon are just like, let's do this. is pretty crazy. But when they're just wearing each other down because they're all evenly matched, the two Pikachus, excuse me, the two Pikachus are just slapping each other back and forth because they're just absolutely dog tired, but they're still fighting, because their masters told them to or whatever. Yeah, Mewtwo thinks he's like their master. I'm the trainer and I'm a Pokemon because I'm blah blah, I'm all high and mighty. But they're just slapping the bejesus. I don't know if I want to swear in here yet. I'll have to, I gotta kind of find my groove with how much vulgarity I want to use. But just slapping back and forth, just like tired, just like the nonsense of violence, just the craziness and the ridiculousness and the horror and the evil. All of those words of violence is that one hits pretty hard too. So this one really makes you think. It started it all, so that definitely helps. It's got some great Pokemon. It's got a good legendaries. It's got a good villain who are also the legendaries. That's why it is up here at number 2. But it's not the best. If you don't already know, if you haven't been counting down and ticking off the boxes, because I only gave you 7 options, and obviously, so process of elimination, the other ones, it was pretty open-ended. This one I gave a very hard one, so there's no surprise, but if you haven't been paying attention, and just for posterity, my number 1 is Pokemon the movie 2000. So that is the second Pokemon movie, and I'm sure some people will be mad that I didn't put one at number 1 here, but Pokemon 2000, it's just my favorite. It's just the best. I just absolutely love it. This one's gonna be a lot because I'm definitely gonna go into depth. I watched this relatively recently as well, just because I love it so much. But the vibe of the island and go back on the boats, it's gorgeous, and these like indigenous people, and they're doing this fun carnival and everything. Great way to start off, great setting to play in, great playground to work with. And then the legendaries used, awesome. All the legendary birds, Articuno, Moltres, Zapdos, those are some of my favorite designs ever. They went out the gate really going hard, and they're awesome. They're really background characters, but again, their design is great. And then the big one, Lugia, his entrance is crazy, right? Get woken up and it's the shadow, you don't know exactly what it is going through, and then finally like breaks out of the water. You're like, oh my god, it's Lugia. The way Lugia talks too, it like kind of doesn't really move its mouth, but I think it's like telepathic. Just that was a really good voice pick. It's got a lot of bravado to it. It's really deep and meaningful and loud. It must be very interesting to be a Pokemon voice actor, whether obviously it's easier if you're dealing with a Pokemon, a legendary, or whatever that can talk, but all these Pokemon, you also have to make sounds. Like all these sounds have to be made by someone. Sometimes maybe they're some are vocalized by people. They're like noises, but most of them are saying their names as Pokemon do. Someone's got to do that, but you can deliver a lot of weight with just those words, those sounds as well. Like I said with Pikachu in the first movie, but it's been done in several other ones as well. But how fascinating was it to be a Pokemon voice actor that loved a bunch of takes? And you probably feel a little silly, but you just gotta get into it. I'm not a voice actor myself, but I can imagine, and it's gonna be a tough task. But when it's done well, you can still see it shine through. And let's all be honest, can't lie to ourselves, that flute song is just the best. It's just, oh my god, I love listening to that. It's beautifully composed, works really well in the vessel with the part it plays in this plot. And it's actually a really beautiful song. You wouldn't think you would be talking about that about just a Pokemon movie, but a really great song. I just wanted to put that in there because it had to be said. And so in this one, the stakes are really high, definitely, right? The whole the channels, the currents of the world is going crazy, and the world is all out of bounds. I've talked about how in some of these other ones, when these stakes are so high, it doesn't work super well. It can really hinder the plot. But in this one, I think it works. For every idea and for every dangerous idea, it pays off sometimes, right? So that's why it's a risk. You're using this unique, crazy idea, and probably a majority of the time, it's going to veer off and get too complicated. You're just not going to be able to stick the landing. But with this, it was a big idea and it did work. You know, having those high stakes, you have to manage it well. You have to manage expectations and resolving the plot and building up the plot, resolving the danger, building up the danger, and all that. But this one just killed it, right? With all the Pokemon coming to fight and to witness the battle. They're coming across the skies. They're coming across the water. The Pokemon who can't do that, they're just chilling at the end, just like knowing something's going out there. You know, the animal kind of sixth sense is certainly a thing. They really play with that. But when the actual climax is happening, the news cameras and all that showing you basically across the world. You know, I mean, Ash should be famous after this, right? Everyone should know Ash, but I digress. I'm not worried about that. The effect on the rest of the movie and the show. But the news cameras, I mean, everything, every time a news camera is there, someone filming it, it obviously ratchets it up a little bit. The worry of Ash's mom and Professor Oak in this definitely ratchet up the tension as well. You know, they're just beside themselves. They get in the copter and they want to go see. They want to make sure he's okay. And they're not used too often either. You know, you don't see Ash's mom very often, and you don't see Oak very often. They get different professors, so you see different professors. But even at the beginning here, they're not very consistently used characters, but they work really well in this. They should be consistently used characters because Ash and his friends, this one, Ash, Brock, and Misty, the power trio, the best, the OG. They are the main focus. You know, they're kids. They're pretty young. They're figuring it out on their own. They're kids. They're like 12 years old. Isn't that crazy? I always thought about that in Pokemon. They're like 12 years old, and their moms, their parents, whoever it is, just allows them to go set off on their own adventure across the world. They don't know where they're going to sleep. You can see they just sleep in the woods all the time. Wouldn't it be so nice if at that time we'd be safe enough to just go let your kids do that and go catch monsters and battle monsters and sleep in the woods, and like who knows how they're making money. They're just, I don't know, you gotta just rely on generosity in the shows and in movies too. They're just given food a lot of the time. I think, do any of them have any money? I feel like a lot of stuff in Pokemon is just free. But either way, I'm still upset about not being born in the Pokemon world. You know what I mean? I want my own Pokemon. I want to just be able to go have a great adventure. I want everything to work out all of the time. I want everyone to be nice, except, you know, there's the bad guys who aren't nice, but almost everyone is nice. Just welcoming you into their home, into their town, giving you food, giving you shelter, allowing you to go across the water and explore all these crazy places and cities and forests and mountains. That is just the life. I'm still happy. I'm still upset that I'm stuck in this stupid world. But whatever. No, I mean, this world's not too bad. Obviously, Pokemon is fantasy, so fantasy is oftentimes a little bit more enticing, a little bit more interesting. But what a fantasy world this is. You know, what kid would not want to go live in the Pokemon world? But definitely digressing there. My point was just that the stakes were so high, and they use that with the cameras and the Pokemon and Ash's mom. And Oak, you know, they do use Oak again in Pokemon Forever, but they're not used very often. They're used to good effect. Here, we're building up the tension. Stuff is really going wrong, and we feel it. We've talked about bad guys. We talked about villains. And the bad guy is not very great. Just some dude in the stupid tower he is around. I mean, he catches all the legendary birds, so that's a pretty big deal. He's clearly pretty formative, so that's some of it. It's a good way to show that your villain is capable, is actually succeeding in some stuff, but not super memorable. But the reason that it doesn't weigh down, it doesn't hurt this movie, is because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who the bad guy is. It's not about the bad guy. In a lot of the other ones, it's not directly about the bad guy, but they just are important. They're in it, or if they're too bad. You know, this one isn't annoying like those girls in Heroes. It's just kind of blah, you know, because it's not about them. It doesn't matter who this guy is. They also didn't probably nail down the, you know, how is it really a bad guy? How far are we going into a bad guy or whatever, in a villain in Pokemon? Again, this is pretty early on, but the bad guys is not the main point or whatever. It starts the plot. You need an instigation. Obviously, we need somehow for this plot to start, and for everything to get out of whack, everything to get out of balance, because that's what this movie is about, right? It's about balance and nature and equality and friendship and love and all that, which a lot of these are about. But specifically, I think this one is about nature and balance, equilibrium. And honestly, this being an anime from Japan, the best animes are usually about balance in nature. You know, it's not about beating the bad guy, it's not about winning, it's just about everything is out of whack and returning it back to balance. It's definitely a big difference between Eastern and Western media in general. Obviously, there's exceptions. Obviously, this is a generalization, but I think in general, can't use the word generalization or general. Let's use the word generalization there. But overall, that is what drives this plot, and what drives usually a good anime is that exact one. And I really like that. Again, if you're not going to have a really good villain, that's what it should be about. It has to be about something else. I haven't talked about this aspect for all of these movies, but I've certainly talked about them for some of them. You know, the role of our characters, our heroes. And this one again, Ash and his friends, Misty and Brock. The role of our heroes can be very important. Some of these movies, I thought they were too passive of observers, and sometimes they can be too active. I don't know if I really want to stake my claim there, but I think sometimes it's too contrived. There's way too much going on. There should be other people that should be doing what they're actually, you know, acting on in the movie. But this one I think is really good because Ash is the chosen one. You know, he doesn't wander into something, and sometimes that can be good that a hero just shows up and it's not like he was asked to come, or just in the right place, right time. But Ash just has a great role in this. He's the chosen one. He's the chosen one. He's always been the chosen one, but he's literally the chosen one in this one. It's kind of accidental or whatever. You know, the girl just grabs him and says, "You're the chosen one." and she just kind of picks up. But later on, I think they go on like, it had to be you. You were the one who had to be there because you're the chosen one. And I love that aspect in general. But it's also that as the chosen one, I'm saying the chosen one a lot, but as the chosen one, he also can't do everything himself. He needs to be the one to actually complete the quest, which is what a lot of great hero stories are about. But he still needs his friends. He needs help. You know, when they come along on the boat, they help him out. They give him some information, and they'll give him some helping hands with Pokemon and such. But then Ash actually goes in, and then Team Rocket helps as well at the very end when they're kind of really, I think it's Lugia or someone. No, maybe it's his own Pokemon. And Ash gets on the sled and takes him around because Lugia's dealing with the legendary birds. The Team Rocket comes in and helps Ash out a little bit. They go blasting off again. They get not their comeuppance, but they still get blasted off again, even though they were doing the right thing here. But that good balance of this is the reason Ash was here. He has to be here. He's the one who has to do it, but also he can't do it alone. He has to do it with his friends. Is really great, really powerful. A great hero's journey. I love this one. I return to it all the time. I haven't rewatched all of these too often, but this one I'll watch a good amount. Usually once a year, once every 2 years, I would say, something like that, because it's just great. It's so fun-loving, and it's that real hero's journey, the whole balance of nature. Great Pokemon. The villain doesn't matter. The villain isn't good, but it doesn't matter. This is at the beginning, so Ash has some great Pokemon as well. We still got Brock and Misty. Those are the core, because we have problems with the next one. But the song in this, the setting, everything is just so strong, right? So that is why this is up here. All right, so I'm just gonna go back and read through these, just so easy to make this very evident. So at number 7, I have Pokemon 3, the movie. At number 6, I have Pokemon Jirachi Wishmaker. That's the 6th movie. At number 5, I have Pokemon Destiny Deoxys. That is the 7th movie. At number 4, I have Pokemon Heroes. That is the 5th movie. At number 3, I have Pokemon Forever. You know which one that is. And at number 2, I have Pokemon the first movie. You know which number that is. And at number 1, I have Pokemon the movie 2000. So that is my rankings of the first 7 Pokemon movies. As I talked about, if I keep going, I could probably drop a few down near the end, near the top of the rankings, but none of the other movies are gonna really probably crack at least the top 4. They're just Pokemon. Original Pokemon was special. It was really, really, really good. All kids loved it. I don't know anyone who hasn't seen at least some of it. It played with good themes. It had awesome looking creatures in the Pokemon. It had great characters. There's just so much going on. It knew what it was. I do think Pokemon has exhausted itself. It's just been running for a really long time. I mean, I don't know if the series or the game came out in 99, but I know one of them started out in 99. I think maybe the game in 97, the show in 99, or maybe flip-flopped. Either way, it's a long time ago. It's almost 25 years. So that's a really long time to be telling stories. Again, I haven't seen them in a while. I'm sure people saw in there that Ash finally won a Pokemon championship. He's been trying to do that for a long time. He usually gets kicked out, which is pretty good, I think, because a lot of shows would have their main hero be the champion every time, but they don't do that with Ash. So that makes it pretty interesting. You always get that. There's the 2 parts of Pokemon shows. There's the just doing adventures and figuring out collecting gym badges, and then doing the big Elite Four tournament or whatever at the end. You can see it's very, very separate. That gets good in like Gen 3. They really do the tournament at the end to good effect. And to be honest, I kind of like the adventure part of it better in some ways, but don't get me wrong, there's some tournaments at the end of finales of seasons that go really, really, really hard. A huge fan of the games, so those are good in games as well. Oh, you know what I want to shout out is the best episode of Pokemon, which is Bye Bye Butterfree. It just hurts every time. It's so sad. If you haven't seen that, if you don't know what I'm talking about, please go watch it. You don't really need context. You can just jump into it. But the whole first season is good. It does find its feet because there's some real silly nonsense that a lot of Japanese kid shows usually get at the beginning. Dragon Ball, Naruto, a lot of those do, and then they get a little bit more serious and they find their rhythm. But the beginning is really good. But the movies are Pokemon to me, I think, in general. Some of it's a time commitment. It's just an easier time commitment. But they use the legendaries. So that is obviously a big reason. Sometimes people don't love legendaries. You're always expecting a big spectacle. So it's good to settle in and just enjoy the ride, the adventure some of them have, where it's not as big stakes or big legendaries and such. But the production's better. Usually get to see some better battles and some more dynamic battles. I said the games are great. I've played so many of them. I really only actually played up to 4, and then I did a little bit of 5 and 6 gens. I'm talking about generations. I played the remakes were always great. When the new Diamond and Pearl came out, I was so excited. I played through that. They kind of ruined it. They made it a lot easier, where you can just, you don't need a box. You can get Pokemon from anywhere, and you can heal your Pokemon, and they all get XP every time. What is that crap? What happened to XP shares and grinding out? Today's kids are too soft. Even their Pokemon games are soft. All right, moving on from that. I do like the trading cards. I got a lot of old ones. I don't know how much some of them are worth, but I do have some good ones. Some like Gyarados and Venusaurs from the very beginning, a few first editions. So I hold that tight as well. Obviously, like some of the merch and everything, it's great. I don't know if I've ever really had a Pokeball just to hold this. It's pretty cool. It has a clip. It's the clip and go ones, I think. And I was able to clip it on my belt for my costume. Really cool. I've been wanting to do this one for a while. This guy is super, super comfy. So that's really good. Squishmallow, I don't know if you know that. I'm throwing out a lot of companies and brands. So shoot me a sponsor if you can. But just, talking about the merch. It's just, what I'm trying to say is that I love all aspects of Pokemon. They're really good. Pokemon is really meaningful to me. Even as an adult now, living in the real world, I still go back to it. It's definitely a happy place. So this was great to revisit these, do some thinking, some deeper thoughts, deeper dives into some of these Pokemon movies and my thoughts on them. Really a blast. I hope anyone who watched this is enjoying it. I hope you enjoyed my costume here. I think I look really good. Please tell me how good I look in the comments if you could, just to boost my self-esteem a little bit. And if you refute my statement earlier that no one beat me for this Halloween, please let me know. Let me know what you dressed up as, reactions or whatever. And I'm talking about Halloween, but we're past Halloween. Next time we are moving into Thanksgiving. It is getting colder, which I enjoy. Cold weather is good, mostly because it brings along the holidays. After New Year's, it gets kind of it gets kind of not great. Because then it's just cold. You're not looking forward to anything. The weather just sucks. You get a nice blizzard. Those are fun. I'm really digressing again. We're going up to Thanksgiving. I have a fun idea I think it'll be next week for my Thanksgiving episode. Hopefully people will like it. I think that's all from me. Please go consume some type of Pokemon media. Hopefully I have inspired you to do that. I love Pokemon. That is it for me. Signing off.